hookup culture in college is literally so toxic.
Women are choosing to be single.
Statistically, dating apps are much worse for men.
Modern dating is just HR with cocktails.
Days of courting have disappeared. It's all digital. You go through the courting period when you fancy someone and then you...
And that is the accusation. Modern dating did not become more intentional. It just became a screening process. People are no longer meeting to discover each other and then deciding what they actually feel. They are trying to remove the risk before a feeling is even allowed to show up. If you go to a date, you just sit down and the questions start pouring in, looking like an interview with mood lighting. If you have a job, intentions, 5 years plan, and nothing says desire, like being quietly assessed by someone that's maybe holding a martini. And people call this maturity, this intentional dating.
You know, if a lot more people would date with intention, then we would have a lot less people getting played, having their time wasted, getting their heart broken.
Yeah, maybe it sounds a bit wiser, but most of the time it just means that romance got handed to people who want certainty before they've even allowed themselves to feel anything. They want the person approved before they even react to them. Then they act a bit surprised when the entire evening felt like a meeting that ran a bit too long. Dating used to begin with a person and end up with a decision. Now it begins with a decision and then spends the rest of the evening pretending a person is still involved. It used to be you met a person first. And that matters because it gave somebody time to become interesting before they were turned into a criteria. You could end up talking to someone because they were in the same pub, maybe at the same party, and in the small window you got, and maybe even a strange little thing that makes someone more attractive once they start existing in front of you. And the person arrived before their filter did. Now, again, the filter just arrives first. Before you know whether somebody has charm, they're already being measured for fit. Not just whether you like them, but whether they make sense on paper, if they're stable enough, maybe if they're attractive enough. And this whole thing starts with selection so naturally that it ends up being an interrogation. And in the older way, for all its stupidity by all means, you were forced to have a different kind of courage. You could be in a pub, you can see a girl across the room, and all you wanted to do was to talk to her. And you have to walk all the way over there while her friends watch the whole thing unfold. Most of the times it went badly. Sometimes maybe you started to mumble or stutter, and maybe the whole group just laughed at you. And you had to walk back to your mates carrying the full spiritual weight of public embarrassment. But that still did something useful. Next time, you were a bit smoother, maybe even calmer, and a bit less afraid of looking stupid. You just didn't care. Now people skip this whole part, this whole process, and then call it progress. Instead of learning confidence through friction, just like anything else you have to learn in life, they build preference to a filter. Yes, I know it's cleaner, but it also strips out the friction that is used to make any of these things feel alive. And this did not come from nowhere. Apps have trained people to think like this. It's normal for them. The first thing an app does is flatten a person into just a summary. Before you hear their voice or catch a rhythm of their tone, you don't even know if actual chemistry is there. The person has already been turned into a neat little label, and that becomes normality. The instinct is gonna stop you from being curious and is gonna turn you into a sorting machine. You are no longer wondering whether you like them, you're just measuring whether they pass or fail your filters. Or maybe if they're attracted enough, or not so complicated that they become an administrative burden. Then people drag the same logic into real life and wonder why their date feels so dead on arrival. Of course it does. The conversation is just live action version of filter screen. And your job means your income, intention means are you about to waste my time, and a 5-year plan maybe means you can fit into the future that I already wrote before you got here. You're not talking to a person, you're just reviewing a candidate with a skin. And that is what these apps have actually changed. They did not just make dating digital, they taught people to confuse attraction with efficient filtering. And I know that interview conversations survive because it's safe. And that is the real problem in here. Flirting is a bit risky risky, and maybe your curiosity might be risky as well. Whilst you're trying to charm somebody, that might end up badly. But that's because there's always a chance that it might land, or you're now trapped in an awkward silence so violent that maybe you can hear your ancestors packaging their bags. And also, interview questions protect people from that. They are controlled, a bit cleaner, and impossible to be blamed for.
Or someone's rejected you, you don't take time to calm and think, what was that? You go straight back onto the gambling app to boost your self-esteem, to make you feel better.
They're gonna make the speaker feel a bit more mature, when what they often are is simply protected from embarrassment. And that is why everybody now sounds the same. They don't have depth. It is fear with just maybe a better haircut. Then people will go home and complain there was no spark. Of course there was no spark. You held it underwater until it stopped moving. Nobody has ever walked away dizzy because somebody asked about their long-term intentions with excellent posture. No. Attraction needs a bit of looseness, maybe a bit of danger, and a bit of room for people to reveal themselves badly before they're gonna show you their good side. And modern dating keeps trying to replace that with structure. But structure is good. It's excellent for airports and tax returns, but not in this context. It's less useful when you are trying to make a stranger feel anything. And this is the part that people hate admitting. Even when the date goes well on paper, it still dies when they meet face to face. You can have two attractive adults, both functional, both saying the right things, both apparently looking for the same thing, serious, whatever. And because of those things, compatibility on paper is not chemistry when you meet up. Modern dating keeps pretending that if enough sensible boxes are ticked, maybe desire will show up later and finish the job. It doesn't work like that. You cannot spreadsheet your way into attraction, and you can't remove every sharp edge of a person. All you get from all these things is gonna be technically sensible evening, has an atmosphere that cuts around the meeting. That is why people keep saying they were great on paper, but something was missing. Yes, a pulse was missing. People just want chemistry with the mess removed. But chemistry is the mess. That is why so many modern dates feel too clean, too polished, and they are so forgettable. And since the internet rewards whatever can be understood quickly, that is usually its shell. It is a polished profile that people put online, just scans fast. It has a stable look in life because, again, it works better. And the problem is that readability is not the same thing as magnetism. It is just easier to process. So people will start building themselves for that specific scan. Not for the room or when they meet in real life, not for the night. It's just quick approval that they need. They become easier to rank and easier to compare. And also, more easier to forget, of course. That is the whole trade. People think that they're becoming smarter daters, when in hindsight, a lot of time they're just becoming better at packaging themselves. But anyways, people thought they were making dating more intentional. What they actually made was admin work. And now everybody wants chemistry, but all of them meet like they are recruiting some things or filtering like they're shopping for an item. And also then present themselves like somebody designed to be processed. Well, then you're gonna act surprised when the whole thing feels like a final interview for a job that nobody is excited about. And dating did not become more mature. It just became a bit more bureaucratic. And once somebody feels easier to process than to be desired, well, this whole thing is already dead.